Welcome all CitrusCon attendees to our panel for this year's event. As you can see, we are going to be doing a very fun, I think, discussion on the lack of empathy in fandom, specifically in the BL fandom, which I think is what a lot of us are attending this con for. But before we jump into things, a lot of you might be wondering who we are, so I'm going to introduce you to us very briefly as well. Okay, so we are LoveCast, the BL podcast. We are an LGBTQIA plus led and centered show that focuses primarily on live action BL and GL, boys love and girls love. I am your host, Alexa. I'm one of the hosts, Alexa. And then I also have my fellow hosts, Kayla and Pixie, here with me on the panel today.
Hey. Hello.
We also have a fourth host, Heather, who is currently on a new parent hiatus from the podcast, but she is here with us in spirit and also helped us out a lot with some of the points in this presentation.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Next slide. Okay, so who are we? Continued. What kind of content do we create? So, as I mentioned, we are a podcast. That's what we started out as primarily. We currently do bi-weekly podcast episodes that include discussions on fandom discourse, lists and rankings rated to BL shows, deep dive into shows, and discussions on the state of the live action BL fandom as a whole. And we also collaborate with a lot of other creators in the boys love and girls love space. In addition to our podcast, we do a lot of interviews with actors, directors, writers, other individuals in the QL or pre-love industry, primarily within Thailand, but we've also done some beyond that as well. We've done some vlogs of BL related excursions and events, including a trip to Thailand that we took in 2023. And we also post monthly series reviews on our YouTube channel as well. But that is enough about us. So, getting into the meat of this presentation, we are going to be talking about the lack of empathy in fandom, specifically the BL fandom. What are we going to be discussing today? So as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about the boys love and girls love fandom across social media and kind of the growing toxicity or hostility that we ourselves have seen in those environments in recent months and years, honestly, and that we know a lot of our friends and peers in this space have also noted seeing as well. And we just kind of want to have a discussion about why we've maybe seen this shift, what we can do to kind of combat this shift, and things like that. So, our first point into why we have kind of seen this shift in BL spaces recently is the changing social media landscape. So a lot of the platforms where, we've all kind of gathered to share in our love of BL and GL have kind of become increasingly volatile in nature. Specifically, when I think of this, I think of Twitter. And since Elon Musk has acquired Twitter and renamed it and gone on his whole power trip that he has gone on with that site, there has been a rise in hate speech and general hostility on the platform. It's become a lot harder to block people and not see the things that you block, or block keywords and not see those keywords that you block. A lot of those functions just no longer work or have been disabled because the people in charge of the site don't want to be able to be blocked and things like that. Instagram and Facebook have not been that much better. Mark Zuckerberg has rolled back a lot of protections against hate speech on his platform. And as all of those platforms kind of work in tandem with the billionaires that are running them, we've kind of seen them collectively shift to be less enjoyable, very difficult to navigate, and it's harder to, I guess, build a safety net in your own fandom like it was previously. even sites that I think are still considered a safe space, largely like Tumblr, that used to be a huge hub for fandom, just aren't used in the same way anymore because the sites just aren't visited by people as much. Tumblr specifically, I think, was a huge hub until they banned porn and specifically like NSFW art, which pushed away a lot of artists who created that art, and a lot of people left the site in community with those artists who felt slighted by that ban. And so a lot of Tumblr's community, fandom community, kind of died out at that time. There is still like a very small but thriving live action BL community on Tumblr that creates art, GIFs, writes analyses, but it's not really the same fandom hub that I think it used to be. I think a lot of people, when they think of Tumblr, they think of it as a space you were on in like the mid to early 2010s, but no one really thinks of it as a fandom hub necessarily in 2025. So I think those are just a few examples of why we see fandom spaces changing, what we have seen changing in those fandom spaces on social media in the last couple years. And it's difficult because now the spaces where you can find the largest amount of community, like the highest numbers in your community, are still places like Twitter and TikTok, but those are often the spaces that are most difficult to navigate and the spaces where we're finding the most toxicity. So it makes it kind of hard to balance wanting to spend time where you're seeing your fandom have the most amount of interaction and community, and also like feeling difficulty navigating that community because the sites themselves make it so hard to create a safe space on their websites. Yeah, that's really the biggest thing we've noticed with social media. It's easy to fall onto the wrong side of an algorithm, and that can mess up your For You page or your feed for days at a time. You know, a lot of people have the experience of ending up on a more conservative alt-right side of TikTok one time, and it takes them weeks to kind of build up the For You page they had previously correlated. So those kind of things can be really discouraging, and it's also really easy to get your own content like smothered on that site. The algorithms suppress people so easily for such arbitrary reasons. So that can be really discouraging as well. If you are creating art or creating content or making videos sharing your thoughts about a series or a manga that you read, and then the social media site is just completely keeping it from your audience or your fans and followers who might enjoy that type of content. So that's the kind of stuff that just makes it a little bit frustrating to navigate social media at this point in time.
Yeah. Can I mention that I feel like there's been popping up other places to like our social medias, and places like Blue Sky, for example. I find it very like a safe place to be, but it's kind of like you're yelling out into the void because there's not much of a community there yet, and the little community there is well, very positive and everything, but you don't have the actors, you don't have the shows, the TV channels, whatever, posting there. So it doesn't, there's not much to interact with, which is really sad because
Yeah, there has been like those offshoots of sites trying to like combat the hostility of places like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, but they aren't gaining traction. Like, you know, I think there has been pushes for people to kind of have that mass exodus, but like you said, like when the actors and artists and shows are still on places like X and Twitter and Instagram, I think it makes it hard for the fandom to fully migrate to a different site, which is sucks to see.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes it feel like it's a necessary evil to be on these sites that are more toxic, because then it feels like you can't be part of the fandom or participate in the fandom if you're not.
Yeah, you're missing out.
Yeah.
And if you're a creator like who makes art or who creates a podcast like we do or does something else, like these main social media sites are still really the only place you can get any real visibility on the content you create. So I think it's definitely still a necessary evil on that front, unfortunately.
Yes, okay. So when your fandom is no longer niche, Boys Love has always been considered a rather niche fandom, especially when we started out. We've always said, like, we were so small back then, and it's only been a couple of years. But in recent years, we've seen a huge amount of growth in the number of people watching and reading BL. And there's a couple of different reasons why. Um, Asian media as a whole has been increasing in popularity. You see that with K-pop, K-dramas, anything like the what they call it, the Hallyu wave.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been like bleeding into other things like Thai BL and KBL and everything. I think, especially when we saw around COVID, when Together came out and no one had anything to do, like we were sitting at home begging for something to watch. So when Together came out, like everyone just collectively sat down and just like, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So it brought the wave to a different level. Like you can say what you will about the quality of the show or whatever, but it brought everyone together. And I know that everyone who was around at that time will say that Together was really like a staple of the time. Like it pushed BLs in general, not just Thai BLs, like JBLs, KBLs, everything was pushed. So it was a very interesting time, and it pushed the whole genre out to more people, and we see that now. The popularity of TikTok goes hand in hand with COVID edits and clips going viral as a help has helped to boost various media and shows, including BL. And that's one more thing that's gotten really big over like the last couple of years, like even just 1 or 2 years ago. Like there's so many edits, and the actors in the shows are using it more and more and going viral with the clips. And it's such an easy way for the fandom to share in what they like and discuss things. So it's gotten more out to everyone around the world.
I was just gonna say, I think there's this really interesting phenomenon with Together and like that whole period of time where like you said, we were all at home. A lot of people were at home. A lot of people were not able to go out and do the things that they normally do. A lot of other TV productions that people are watching couldn't film, so like shows, new seasons were getting delayed and stuff like that. And the other thing that was also really unique about Together is that it was one of the first shows to do the live premiere on YouTube. So it was like this interesting way of like feeling community watching that live premiere and like being in the YouTube chat with everyone in a time where everyone felt very isolated. And then you could like jump over to TikTok and look at all the edits that people were making about the episodes or the discussions that were happening, and like continue to engage in the community that way. So I feel like those things like worked so perfectly hand in hand in a way that they could only work together at that period in time, at such like an unprecedented period of time. As much as I hate to use that word because we've heard it so much in relation to COVID over the past 5 years, but it really was such an unprecedented thing that you think about, like, if that hadn't been the case, like, would this boom have happened the way it did? Like, would it have taken longer for BL to achieve the global stage it has now? It's just a really interesting element of the BL journey to think of.
Yeah, and if you wanna like compare how the growth has been, you can look at companies like GMM TV and see how many shows did they put out a year of BLs. For 5 years ago, they had like, we were lucky getting 2 shows. Like last time they had their announcement, like 90% of the shows that are coming out are BL or GL. It is crazy, and it's growing so fast. But even though it's growing really fast, like it's still fairly niche. Like compared to all the other media that we can compare this to, it is very, very niche. It sometimes doesn't feel that way when you're in the fandom because you're surrounded by other people that watch it and like it. But out there in the real world, we're a small group. So yeah, it's been growing a lot in the last 5 years. Thailand's creative industries have been taking the world by storm through a new phenomenon known as the tea wind. The tea wind refers to the rising popularity of media from Thailand, such as music, TV, and film. I remember the first time I really noticed it was when I saw Japanese fans being excited about Thai BL. Like they had their own section in their stores beside the yaoi with Thai BL. That cemented everything in place for me because I'm just like Japanese, like in Japan there's such a big BL section. They've been doing this for years. They have a lot of it already, and that Thai BL managed to like squeeze its way in there. That was wow.
Yeah, this term tea wind is actually one that was newer to me. I hadn't heard it prior to doing research for this presentation, but interestingly enough, the post where I first saw it used was in an Instagram post by Tatler Asia's Thailand Instagram page, and they were talking about different like Thai celebrities who have become global on the stage of like fashion and music and things like that. You know, they mentioned Lisa and Bam Bam from Blackpink. They mentioned some films like How to Make Millions Before Grandma Dies, which was Oscar nominated this year. But one of the things I thought was really interesting is that the post featured almost half of the people featured on the post had acted in BL or GL before. They had Brighton Wynn from Together. They had Freen from Gap the series. They mentioned How to Make Billions Before Grandma Dies, which starred Bilkin, but they didn't mention BL or GL as part of the T Wind. So I thought that was an interesting... I don't know what the word I'm looking for. I just thought it was interesting that this post was talking about the boom of Thai culture and Thai celebrities around the world, featuring so many Thai celebrities that have fueled the BL and GL
had
live
their
action
start
genre,
in BL.
but didn't mention BL or GL in the post itself. So that was just an interesting thing I noted when researching the term the T Wind and how people were talking about it.
Yeah, I will say I think a lot of that has to do with how the world sees BL and yaoi, if you want to use that term as well. Like the fujoshis of the world have been for decades now trying to they've
combat stereotypes.
Yes, exactly. They've been trying to defend themselves against accusations of most common term is fetishizing, and I've said this before, I hate the word fetishize because I don't think it fits, and I don't think we should talk about kink and fetish in a negative way that much because it has too much negative stereotypes attached to it already. So I'm going to use objectifying. So yeah, a lot of fujoshis over the years have been trying to defend themselves against accusations of them objectifying gay or queer men. And especially a lot of them have these women or they've been straight passing. So they've like been, there's like this common misconception that it's just straight women that are driving BL. which isn't true. A lot of us are queer. So
Not.
I just, yeah, what worries me with this trend that we're seeing, that BL is getting bigger. There's more people coming into the world that aren't necessarily so aware of the past, and so aware of queerness in general. And I'm afraid that we're seeing a rise of a generation that's coming into BL that are objectifying these actors or gay men on screen. And it's a little bit scary, honestly. Like I know, like, we've been fighting so long against the accusations that it's scary to see it happen. And
Yeah, I think the growth of a fandom like always comes with a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, like, we are seeing more people come in to BL and GL who don't really care to know the history of where it originated, going back to like its roots in Japanese yaoi manga and how niche that culture was, and the things people did to like get that type of content around to the people who are interested in it. But on the other hand, like, it has also made the fandom so much more diverse and made it easier to defeat those stereotypes, because there are so many more queer people coming to BL and GL as a form of media that they enjoy, and also a lot more queer people creating it, writing the stories, directing the stories, writing the mangas and the webtoons and things like that. So it really is like a double-edged sword of like, the bad seeds always come in with, you know, the good expansion as well, which it's difficult to navigate for sure.
yeah. And it doesn't help when some companies that make these shows are leaning into the objectification, creating shows that in general have terrible storytelling and all of that, but they have a lot of like intimate scenes and stuff just to play on those type of fans, which puts the whole fandom in a bad light. But yeah, like you said, it's a double-edged sword. No matter how you see it, like, there's gonna be bad seeds in every fandom, and it's hard to know how to combat it. Yes, so due to all these factors, the barrier of entry into BL fandom has been significantly lowered. BL as a genre has become much more accessible to viewers living outside of Thailand, with English subtitles, subscription services, etc. There is so many ways to watch. Because media moves so quickly, it's become harder to set up safeguards for fandom spaces. And sometimes these safeguards are viewed as gatekeeping. We only let XX person into this space. This sentiment could prevent hate speech, bullying, but it could also block people who, with genuine interest, from entering the fandom. And I want to add there as well that that type of speech can also chase people away that would be good for the space, because they don't want to deal with that. So yeah.
Okay, so at this point, you might be wondering, what does any of this really have to do with empathy? And as the BL fandom has grown bigger, it's gotten a lot more difficult to navigate these spaces in a fun and healthy manner. A lot of this has to do, honestly, with the way the fans treat each other and the actors in online spaces. We see so much fighting over ships and trending specifically. We also see people harassing artists for every choice pretty much that they make, and taking that all in on seemingly a daily basis can be very exhausting. There have been so many examples throughout the years, our years doing this podcast, our years like as BL fans, and even just like recently that we can get into. I mean, fandoms have always been infighting since the dawn of time, but I think because of everything that we've talked about with, you know, how Twitter is now and how other platforms are, the culture has definitely amplified it. And COVID probably amplified it as well. But there just doesn't seem to be that sense of togetherness in a lot of fandom spaces anymore, because like you come together with this shared interest or this shared thing that you're passionate about or you love, and it just, the unity isn't always there because there seems to be so much fighting in the fandom, if that makes sense. So like, for example, one big subject that is constantly coming up and causing a lot of harsh language between fans and these online spaces is this argument over what country produces the best BLs. We do have a podcast episode about this if you wanted to go check that out. But there's been this ongoing debate where one side of people think that a lot of the East Asian BLs do it better overall, which would be, you know, the Korean BLs, the Japanese BLs, and they kind of view the BLs from Southeast Asia, like the Thai ones, the Pinoy ones, etc., as being dirty. And obviously, like historically, that is a thing. Southeast Asia has kind of been looked down on in a sense of they've been viewed as like their media copying K-pop, for example, or their media just not being at the same quality as media from Southeast Asia, which is not true, but that's just kind of a stereotype that has been around for as long as I've been alive. And another issue that negatively affects BL spaces online is homophobia, which is very, very ironic. Like Pixie mentioned before, the growing popularity of this genre of media opens it up to a lot more types of people joining. And some of those people, weirdly enough, are very homophobic, or I guess they just have a lot of prejudices. They're not entirely educated about queer culture or queer representation in shows. So you would not expect it. It's something that you really wouldn't expect because BL is centered around, you know, MLM content, GL, WLW content, but people kind of, I guess, compartmentalize it in a way where, like, what they're watching on screen is not the same as how they're interacting with people online, if that makes sense.
I think BL and GL has also been, I don't know if the word, if negative is the right word, but there is this connotation, maybe a stereotype, maybe an element of that has historically been tied to BL and GL, and that is the idea that it's a fantasy. You know, the worlds are super happy-go-lucky for the most part, especially, you know, in some of the certain genres, there's not a lot of questioning of queerness, of why someone's queer. Everyone is gay, and it's just sort of accepted. So I think this tying of BL to being fantastical has also led to this split from it being tied to reality, if that makes sense. So these people come in and they're like, this is just a fantasy. They don't see BL as a representation of queerness, like real queerness as they define it. So it's easier for them to separate their own less than nice homophobic views about queer people in real life from the media they're watching, because they don't view it as a real thing or tied to reality at all.
I always compare it to like people see like a dragon on screen, and these people, homophobic people, see gay people as dragons, basically. Like they're on a TV show. They're not real in real life. That's not normal. Which is it's sadly a part of our world that we live in, but it's sad to see. I will say, like, on the other side of things, that a lot of the BL and GL that we've experienced have been positively affecting, especially very homophobic countries like Thailand to some extent, with the laws being changed for gay marriage. So
Yeah. So another specific example that I wanted to bring up of something that the BL fandom often has a lot of toxicity when it comes to is ships. Specifically when a pairing or a ship break up, quote break up, and they're no longer working together. We've seen a lot of instances where actors who are working together as basically a love team end up not working together anymore, and fans will split in half and take one person's side, take another person's side, and it just like is constantly causing this infighting with these fandoms who in some way used to be unified, but now they're just torn apart. There is this actor named James who this kind of happened to, where he broke up with his pairing. Nobody really knew the details of why, but because he was the one who seemed to initiate the pairing split, he has received a lot of hate since then. And it just like persists no matter what he does, which goes back to our point about how a lot of people in these spaces kind of feel like they own the actors, and they feel like they, I guess, have the right to criticize every single move they make. So more recently, this actor, he went viral for a wrong reason. A clip of him singing a cover of a song went very, very viral, and he received a lot of hate for it. And of course, this hate just caused the BL fandoms online to be in an uproar. There was a lot of fighting again, a lot of defense of him, but also a lot of criticism of him. And this is just one example of many. Another example that just happened this week is there was another actor named Smart who his company and the person who he was in the pairing with, their companies are basically fighting each other, to put it simply. And a lot of the criticism is landing on him because it seems like the company threw him under the bus. So there's been a lot of fighting between the people who support him and the people who support the other actor, and people are starting to, take sides between them again. So shipping in general causes a lot of toxicity in the BL spaces. I honestly think it might be the subject that causes the most. But yeah, it's crazy. Did you guys have any other examples?
No, I just think it's very interesting with the Smart situation, because the what is happening is basically mirroring the whole show he was a part of. And the fact that the fans don't see it and still like go against like the whole message of the show is crazy to me. But again, that shows that there's a part of the fandom who's more like in tune to the intimacy rather than the storytelling of the show.
Yeah, and this point about actors constantly being accused of queer baiting is another thing that I think stems from our point about homophobia, because and feeling like people own the actors, just a lot of toxicity there, and people have been forced to essentially come out or address their sexualities in some way, which is quite sad that they're having to out themselves because of toxicity and fighting in the fandom associated with queer baiting specifically.
And I think one of the biggest examples of this that I think a lot of people watching this panel are probably familiar with is Kit Connor from Heartstopper, who was, when the show first started, barely 18, but was basically forced to come out as bisexual like after the first season of the show because he was linked to dating a woman in real life, and people were basically attacking him and his ability to represent Nick, who is bisexual in the show, because they thought he was a straight man playing that character. And he ended up having to come out when before he was ready to, in order to basically prove his ability to play Nick in Heartstopper. And we've seen this a lot in like the BL space too, especially with the live action. There is this blanket assumption that all of the actors in BL are straight unless they are visibly dating another person of the same gender, which I think is just a weird assumption to make about people in general. I think that goes into larger assumptions about heteronormativity versus queerness. But in the BL space, like, there is this assumption that all of these men are basically gay for pay, that they're just kissing each other for the sake of the check, and that there's no possibility that any of these men are actually queer, aside from the ones who are visibly queer or dating another man visibly or another person of the same gender visibly. So it just, there's a lot of stereotypes that come into play when it comes with the shipping and the love teams and the assumptions that people are making about the actors in these love teams that I think can be very frustrating to navigate and puts the actors in a lot of situations of having to address their personal lives and their personal relationships, which they should not have to do.
Yeah. I will say at the beginning, when we like BL type live action BL started to be a thing, like there was these actors who were basically openly homophobic doing the roles. And I will say, like, we've come a long way from that. But it's very sad that anyone assumes anyone's queerness or non-queerness. I find it very disturbing also that people demand that someone out themselves because they're playing a gay role. I understand that we want queer people to represent queer characters. At the same time, like, we know that queerness isn't the most acceptable thing in the world right now, and it's great for the people that are out and representing, and that's great, but not everyone can or is brave enough to do that. And we should not be pushing people in that direction. It takes away the whole everything queerness stands for, right? So that trend with the whole kit, and like we've seen recently too with singers, and I think it happened with the Disney, oh, what's her name? She was in Disney before and she sings now. Never mind. But
Sabrina?
Yeah, no, not Sabrina. Cameron Dove?
Oh, Cameron Dove?
Oh,
Yeah.
Dove Cameron.
Dove Cameron, yes, there we go.
Cameron, yes,
Yeah.
thank you. I was just like, name did not come to me. Yeah, I think she had to recently come out as bi because she's dating a man. I hate how the trend is going towards hate instead of promoting love like we should, especially in the middle of Pride Month.
There's this like refusal to understand where people are coming from and give them the space to figure things out themselves, especially when it comes to sexuality. Yeah. So, why is it that people are like this? I ask myself this question every single day. um, and I think two of the big reasons why are because of the anonymity and just because of entitlement. You know, online you're typically hiding behind a username and an avatar, and that makes people basically feel like they can do anything, like they're invincible, because it's a way for them to shield themselves from criticism or receiving any serious backlash aside from online. Um, and being anonymous online can also dehumanize people since no one is showing their faces, and oftentimes they're not even using their real names. This, of course, just applies to people who aren't using their real names and faces. But yeah, actors also, I think, are being dehumanized via shipping culture, which I touched upon. So another big thing is just that people like to rage bait, I think. Sometimes people don't feel one way or the other. They don't really stand for anything. They wouldn't really care either way, basically. But being angry about something or rage baiting or causing outrage in some way gets the most engagement and followers. That seems to always be the case. A lot of people go into these spaces wanting the clicks, wanting the followers, subscribers, and so they have this mindset of any attention, including bad attention, is good attention. Yes. And social media does encourage people to act this way because a lot of the platforms encourage people to center themselves and to constantly be posting any of their thoughts and their opinions. And a lot of people, I think, just jump into that and don't really like think before they share the opinions and thoughts. Because it's like, yeah, should I be sharing this? Should I be saying this? A lot of times there isn't a second thought in there because everything online is just so instant. Even like everything we consume, we're receiving it so instantly, and we kind of, I guess, just react in the same way instantly. And there is a lot of oversharing in spaces. I think we've all overshared a little online at some point in time. People will respond to oversharing with like memes and stuff, like what happened to hello.
How are you?
What happened to hello? How are you? But yeah, I also think that with things like Twitter, I've noticed that a lot of people are advertising tweets and stuff. I think that with features you can like where you can pay, you can like advertise your tweets, or even on Instagram, I know that you can boost posts. And so I feel like that causes people to kind of try to boost these posts that say the most incendiary things, if that's the word. Just trying to like grab people's attention and keep it. Unfortunately, a lot of the posts that are advertised on these platforms, going back to like hate speech, it kind of falls and borders on that. And another very big thing, I've especially seen this in the K-pop fandom and the BL fandom, is ageism and age dynamics. In fandom, there seems to be a generational divide between fans and a lot of these online spaces. A lot of younger fans, not all, but a lot of younger fans kind of have this attitude of like, why are you standing this person? You're over like 30 or something, and the age keeps getting lower and lower. They're like, you're over like 25, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this isn't even old.
Yeah.
But yeah, ageism is actually a really big thing. It's very relevant in fandom. And it is ironic because the older fans are usually the backbones of the fandoms. They're usually the ones who kind of started to cultivate these spaces online. So, yeah, that's just another reason why people are like this. Did you guys have any other examples of why people may be like this online?
I don't know. I think it really all comes back to like kind of like that first point of people wanting to cultivate attention online. And like you were talking about how like people can advertise and boost tweets, and things like that. People can get paid for tweets if you're like an account with a blue check. So I think about like when kind of circling back to that discussion we had, about which country makes the best BL. There was a specific example we talked about in this episode that originated from one specific tweet from an account with a blue check mark, if I'm remembering correctly. And I, don't want to make an assumption that that person made that tweet because they knew it would start this argument. We talked about how it's like a cyclical argument that comes up basically every like 6 months, maybe even less, in the live action fandom. But that tweet that went viral and started that argument again, that person has the ability to like make money from all of the engagement that comes into that tweet. So I think just this online culture that has been cultivated of engagement and making money on TikTok and going viral so you can hit a certain number of followers and join the creator fund or get paid for having this type of tweet here. I just think like that really fuels a lot of stuff in the fandom. I think in the BL fandom, a lot of it does just happen organically with the nature of the genre and the shipping and the types of community that creates and this fierce competition that's there now with engagement, and battling it out over that, especially in recent months. But I think there is a lot that just comes back to people wanting to go viral because they think that's their chance to make it in an online space in whatever capacity that means to them. And so they are trying to be strategic in going viral in the way that's easiest, which is getting people talking about something negative or something, what's the word you use, incendiary. Something that
Incendiary.
Thank you. Something that will get people talking and get people riled up, I think, is usually the easiest way to kind of have that viral moment that a lot of people are looking for.
Another point I want to add to this is that I think people are acting like this because there is such a rise in conservatism in the world.
Right.
Another thing that we have seen in online spaces has caused a lot of toxicity is this puritanical view of BL, and kind of like shaming people who like BLs that have like a lot of intimate scenes, or like accusing the actors of queer baiting if there's a lot of intimate scenes, and just like kind of having this attitude of if there is sex in a show, then it is not as good, or it's like not as respectable, it's not as like tasteful. And that just, again, it like stems from this new wave of conservatism among people, and actually among a lot of younger fans as well. A lot more, I guess, traditional thinking points have entered online spaces, and BL is one of them.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Final thoughts. So, how do we bring back empathy to fandoms? So, first point, on a personal level, curate your fandom spaces. It's more difficult than ever with the way algorithms on these sites work, but use your block and mute buttons freely, leave servers and communities that no longer bring you joy, and create your own communities with fandom friends who you trust and feel safe with. I know we have a Discord that we've been very strict with how you talk in there, because we want it to be an open space for everyone to have an opinion that is respectful, so everyone can enjoy. And obviously it helps when you only have like 200 people on a server instead of 1,000, but you know.
And I think this whole endeavor of LoveCast started kind of for that same reason of wanting to create a space where we could have these discussions, like these really in-depth discussions about things happening in the BL space or about shows, and kind of approach it in a way where we knew our discussions would be safe, because we were obviously just talking amongst each other, and then, you know, obviously you put things out online and anything could happen. But it was a way for us to kind of talk through how we were like moving through the BL space initially, and then it kind of grew from there into something much bigger, and now we're creating our own spaces within that. So
We've been really lucky with our BL fandom space. So number 2 is be mindful of how you're interacting in fandom spaces. Sometimes the best choice you can make is just delete the tweet, step away from the argument. It is
no matter how
the
difficult it might feel.
hardest thing you'll ever do, but it's just for your own sanity as well as everyone else's. just take a step back. But yeah, it's very hard. There will be moments when topics need to be addressed, so if that's the case, then take some time to formulate your thoughts before you respond. I think, like, I can say from personal experience that not being like native English speaking, a lot of the times I experience on social media when I'm writing that I tend to not get my point across because I don't explain myself to the best of my ability in text. And that's created situations which I didn't mean for and didn't intend for, and it takes a lot of a toll on your psyche, especially when people misunderstand you and what you stand for. It's probably the most horrible feeling in the world, and it's really hard not to start immediately defending yourself. But that is also can create situations that it just makes it worse, right? So yeah. And for the third one, put out the same type of energy you would wish to see towards yourself and your faves. In other words, treat others how you want to be treated, which is something you should do with everything in life, honestly.
Yes.
If something isn't to your taste, you can simply not consume it. No one is forcing you to watch a particular series or follow a certain acting pair or be a part of a conversation. No one is forcing you to do anything. So be mindful. Be nice.
Yeah. And I think all of this also extends back to the way you interact with the artists and actors in this space. Kind of going back to how they can often be dehumanized. I think taking those extra steps to be empathetic when you're commenting on a post or responding to maybe a change in appearance that an actor has had, or a choice that they have made in terms of a project or something like that. Just taking that extra time to think if what you're saying really serves a purpose, I guess, as opposed beyond just being cruel or expressing a dislike of something, can go very far, because we know that they do see and read and feel impacted by the things that are said about them the same way that we see and read and feel impacted by them. So I think just remembering that everyone in this space is human, including the actors and the artists that are creating these shows, and extending that same courtesy to them that you extend to your friends and fellow creators and fans would make a huge difference in things as well.
I say this all the time in real life, but it costs $0 to be kind.
Truly.
And maybe that's a boomer sentiment, but I love little sayings like that, along with treat others how you want to be treated, because it's so true. If you would just be nice, if everyone would just be nice, the idyllic world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that is all for our presentation today on empathy and fandom, and how we can maybe work through some of the stuff that has been going on in the fandom space and bring a little bit of that empathy back to them. Thank you very much on behalf of all of LoveCast for tuning in and listening to this presentation. We hope you enjoyed it. It's something none of us have done a presentation for a long time. I haven't been in school for a long time, so if it's a little rough around the edges, please forgive us, but we hope the meat of it still came off well to you and that you enjoyed listening through our thoughts. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Enjoy the rest of the con.
Bye.